Snaking its way through the countryside of Southern Virginia, this beautiful 3.2-mile strip of asphalt has been around since 1957. But now, for the second time in 3 years, the Virginia International Raceway is home to the SCCA National Championship Runoffs.
Hi everybody, and welcome to Virginia International Raceway, our coverage of this year's 59th running of the SCCA Runoffs presented by Mazda. Great to have you with us here. This is a beautiful facility, but as that shot alone will tell you, it is under attack almost here. The winds are fierce. The rain is pummeling down, coming down sideways at times as we feel the effects of Hurricane Ian as it has come ashore here in South Carolina. But we have a race to unfold. It is going to happen here, and it is Touring 3, or T3, as the class is called. I'm Greg Creamer, joined here by Tom O'Gorman, Haywood Wagner covering all the action down in the pits for us. And this is going to be an immense challenge. Obviously, this track, difficult in the dry because of the precision you need to run it, and it's quick. In the wet, it's even more diabolical, and there's some drivers in this class. This should be a show.
Yeah, T3 has always put on a great show over the last couple of years. It really, over the last 5 or 6, since Daytona, we had a field of 5 back in 2015. Now we're at a field of 20, and the talent runs really deep. We also have a really good variety of cars, which we know how they balance out in the dry for the most part, but it's not dry. So we're going to see how this balances out here at VIR for 2020's championship.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating to have this race unfold, and there's always fascinating stories developing down on the grid. Haywood Wagner, hope you're able to stay a bit dry, my friend.
Yeah, I'm doing my very, very best. We're here in the T3 field, and guys, it is just plain miserable right now. The wind, I'm guessing, is in the 20 to 30 degree or 30 mile an hour range. The temperature has dropped. The rain has picked up. And I don't know if you guys got to it on the setup or not, but we had a major oil spill in the race prior to this one, over an hour of cleanup. This class came to grid, were ready to go, and then were sent back. They sat for about an hour, hour and 10, and have come back again. So these guys have already been on an emotional roller coaster of it's time to go. We might not go at all today. Okay, now we're going right now. I've talked to several of the drivers. There's not a lot of, I would say, real optimism or excitement right now. Everybody sees that the track is going to be a challenge. One little tidbit that I will give you, everybody struggled with visibility today. I'm looking at Marshall Mast's Mustang. It has those thin little wires across the windshield. You usually see it on the back window of the car. They've got it on the windshield to keep it clear.
That's a really good point, and it's basically using a rear defrosting system that they've embedded into the front here. And as the cars are getting ready to roll out, let's take you through that starting lineup. As you see, the number 31 of Marshall Mast, the defending national champion, he starts second, but starting in the 20th spots, the 39 of Edward Karabek out of Scarborough, Maine. Starting in the 19th spot, the number 2 of Dina Weisberg, who just had her car tested in the previous race by her husband, John Weisberg. Starting in the 18th spot, the 27 is Nicole Jacques out of San Jose, California for Phoenix Performance in the Ford Mustang EcoBoost. Starting in the 17th spot, the 92 of Daryl Pritchett. He's out of Daytona Beach, Florida. He's got to be chilly. In the Goodyear Angry Sheep Motorsports Ford Mustang V6. Starting in the 16th spot, the 08, Frank Garcia out of Frostproof, Florida, and he's in the Universal Shooting Academy Porsche Spec Boxster. 15th spot, the 87 of Ben Schlecht out of Middletown, Delaware. Alien Force Racing Nissan 350Z. Starting next up in the 14th spot, the 05 of Rich Kulak out of Covington, Louisiana, and he's driving out of the Tennessee region in the Fiesta Auto Group Nissan. Starting in the 13th spot, the 68 of Jared Lendrum out of Queensbury, New York, in the North Country Subaru WRX STI. Starting in the 12th spot, the number 109, it's Gami Aguilar Gemez out of Renton, Washington, the Racer on Rails BMW. Starting in the 11th spot, the 81 of Simon Asselin out of Sammamish, Washington, also driving one of those BMWs. Then in the 10th spot, it's number 29, Xiaoyi Shea out of Washington, D.C., running the Tech Sport Toyota 86. 9th spot, two-time gold medalist, but in American sedan, Ross Murray from Marina Del Rey, California, in the New Zealand Seafoods Ford Mustang. Starting in the 8th spot, the 06, longtime competitor James Lighthouser out of Colorado Springs, Colorado. Gold medal winner back in 2004 at Mid-Ohio in Showroom Stock B, the BMW Z4. In the 6th spot, the number 5 of Chris Hart out of Yakima, Washington, in the BMW Spec E46. 5th spot, the 52 of Breton Williams out of Clinton, Iowa, in the OPM Motorsports Nissan 370Z. And outside of the second second row. In the 4th spot is the number 4, Rob Hines, out of Arlington, Virginia, the Tech Sport Racing Hoosier Nissan 370Z. Starting in the 3rd spot, the 26, Jason Ott, out of Houston, Texas, in the Hoosier BMW. In your front row on the outside, defending champ Marshall Mast, who's won 3 of the last 4 gold medals in this category. He's out of Denver, Pennsylvania, in the Phoenix Performance Ford Mustang GT. On the pole, his first ever is the 09 of Jason Ott, out of Littleton, Colorado, in the Alpine Hoosier Bimmerworld BMW Z4M. And as you can see, the cars are heading out. Well, 2 things. One, we are going to be having the first lap will be a pace lap. The green flag will fly. The second lap will be done as a race lap, but it will be at pace lap speeds. Let's take a look at the track map here. As I said, Tom, this is a tricky track at any point because it presents as 3 different tracks almost, doesn't it?
Yeah, it really does. And they're looking at the first sector now, and as it is so wet, we'll kind of talk about the challenges that presents. Down in the braking zone for turn number 1, the dry line tends to be very, very slick under the brakes. Driver's not even making the corner because the car won't stop. Then we get through NASCAR corner into turns 4 and 5. Now, all of that runoff downhill towards tire walls, and that's a very slick section of track as well, but the most technical and slowest sector. Then we get into the really fast flowing high-speed S's. It's very single file. There's not much of a rain line, quote unquote, because there's nowhere really to go. You just shoot up the hill, but you definitely have to be careful at the top. The car will float right through 9 and right into 10, where there is another big fall off before we get into one of the most important corners on the track, Oak Tree, there at turn 12. Want to get the car squared up and put the power down nicely for that nice long back straightaway as we get into the fastest sector. And this is where Roller Coaster and Hog Pen present the final challenges at VIR. The big braking zone for turns 13 into 14, and then a downhill run about 130 feet towards Hog Pen at turns 16B and 17. We have seen some challenges with hydroplaning between turns, well, we'll call it turn 18. Hey, there it is right there.
There you go.
So hydroplaning down the front straight is very real as well.
Right, and this track, the thing of it is as you look, there's no paved runoff, there's no gravel traps to catch you, and most of the time when you go off track, it slopes downward, which is tough enough in the dry. In the wet, that grass, you almost pick up speed, and eventually you slide and you hit something.
It is. It's not a very forgiving track.
Exactly. That's a great way to put it. I've often said this is a beautiful flowing road course you have to drive with street course precision, and that's part of the game here. As I said, now, when they come by and complete this lap, they're going to continue one more lap at speed under the pace car, but the clock will start, and this first lap will count as a race lap, and it's simply for all these drivers who sat out, and you're always nervous when you're the next group out after a big oil spill cleanup. You'd like, especially in the wet, you'd like to have a clue what it's going to feel like as you go through it. I think this is very smart.
Getting iced on the line is what we would call that. You definitely just kind of sitting there waiting and anticipating. But these drivers, one of the last races of the day, they have every opportunity to have studied every other race. Plus, they got an extra hour of study time right before the test. So you get to go out there with all the information that everyone else has showed you all day. And one thing here in T3, this is kind of an intersection of attainability and speed, I think. Not very modified cars. They're all production-based, but they're faster than your basic, Miata that you got by off the showroom floor. We see a lot of those Mustangs that have been very successful. It's a stick axle generation car, which we've seen put power down extremely well in these conditions. Then we move over to that more sports car style Nissan 370Z, 350Z. I would throw the BMW E46 in there as well. They're just kind of a good all-rounder. But the Nissans in particular have been having some braking issues here at VIR. Then we get to our wild cards. We have those M Coupes that have really been knocking on the door of wins and podiums every single year. There's a good look at James Lighthouser's. But one is finally on pole with Jason Ott, teammate Steve Ott right behind him at the green flag. It's just as hard to step on your teammates' toes as it is to work together. Last car I want to call out, Jared Lendrum, all-wheel drive in that 2006 Subaru STI. He was about 5 seconds off pace on raw, dry speed. I think he's going to be a little quicker here.
I would think, and that easy to pick out that car of Jared's. It's a burgundy red car that pops just a little bit. There it is. You'll be able to watch that car and see what he's able to do in these absolutely atrocious conditions. There's no other way to put it. As Haywood said, winds now pretty consistent at about 25 or so miles an hour. Gusts now up into the 40 range. I mean, it is really difficult out there at this stage, and this is going to be an interesting one. This is a matter of survival almost, and then you're going to see, all right, are we going to be able to do anything for the win here? And Sports Car Magazine picked Marshall Mast to get his another gold. As I said, he's had 3 of the last 4, but he was beat here at VIR in 2019. That's the one that he lost. So I think he feels like a little unfinished business here, Tom.
Definitely, and it was a fantastic race. Go look in the archives after today's racing for that against Broderick Bogas, who was in one of those Spec E46 BMWs. They are not as strong in this qualifying field. We've seen those M Coupes get a little bit stronger, and we've heard a lot of shock package development on that car for Jason, Steve Ott, and Lighthouser. But I think a lot of that car development will go out the window a bit here in these conditions. And we know from the Aquilani team, from the Phoenix team, that the stick axle Mustangs are a bit of a favorite here in these conditions.
Absolutely. Jason Ott was picked to finish second, and for Jason, he was second last year in Indy in this class. As I said, though, this is his first pole and in his 20th start, so he's been doing this a while, and he's absolutely thrilled to be up front. The question is, can he stay there? And then Rob Hines, who won both parts of the Hoosier Super Tour race here at VIR this year, has got to be also considered a favorite. Sports Car certainly thinks so, and picked him to be on the podium, probably third.
Very stout driver, and I have to imagine he's got some rain experience at somewhere across the board in his wealth of experience. Also raced that car professionally in World Challenge, so it's a different spec line, but should be a fairly familiar car. Unfortunately, Rob is the one that had the majority of the braking issues, so we'll fingers crossed, knock on wood, that number 4 car, the bright yellow Tech Sport Z that you see there in 4th, will be all good to go today.
Absolutely, and this is one of the newer classes in SCCA competition. Its first year was 2006, and it didn't take long for it to become a favorite because the racing is so close, so fierce, so intense. Good variety in the field in terms of machinery, and the drivers just are top tier in this one. This should be fun. As you can see now, this is where the pace car, the beautiful Mazda Miata there, the MX-5, will duck into the pits, and then it'll be up to Jason Ott in that blue and white BMW, beautiful Z4M, will lead them to the green for what will be 14 laps or about 36 minutes left in this one when we go green. And it's always interesting into turn 1 here. That's where a lot of this oil spill was. It was slick there to start with, as you pointed out. So it'll be interesting to see what the approach is here, if anybody is a little bit more cautious, or if somebody decides, well, this is a big opportunity for me here. Looking for the green. We're waiting for it. And we're green. There he goes. Stephen Ott drops the hammer, but look at the launch Marshall Mascot up along the outside, side by side, hammering down into turn 1. That outside lane that Mustang is on is where it's been a bit tricky. Here comes the field. He makes it through. How about everybody else? He's trying to ramp the outside. Ott has position at this stage. So far, so good, Tomo.
Man, was that a big wiggle for Jason Ott on the brakes as he got on the binders in that M Coupe, but everybody seems to be getting through. The majority of the field has now cleared turn 2, as we're side by side between Derek Kulak and Chris Hart. That is for 5th position, I believe. BMW versus Nissan 6th, excuse me, and they slot back in line. Doing a really good job of being single file, except for Jared Lendrum. Watch that Subaru.
Yeah, he's going to be going anywhere he wants in that car at this stage. It's going to be fun. Derek Kulak, a double gold medalist in this category. This field is chock full of gold medal winners, some in this class, some in other classes that are similar, and just an absolute treat to watch it. Look at that spray and the visibility, folks. And that's where the one good thing about the wind can be is the wind will clear that spray a little bit quicker as long as it's a side wind. But if you're running into it, it's just going to make that stick.
We've been seeing 30 to 50 mile an hour gusts at this point, and it's actually blowing straight into the cars down the back straight. It's a tailwind at this point in the track, but everyone being pretty cautious. They're looking a little visibly cautious as we come up the S's for that very first time. Smart moves for everybody. A lot of pressure on the back of Steve Ott for Rob Hines, as the top 4 cars have not actually changed position yet, but are starting to check out a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And here we go. Oh, big slide there by Marshall Mast, though. Wonder if that'll give Hines a little bit of an opportunity there as that car slid. Oh, we got a couple of cars that are off. No, he's not going to hit anything, I don't think. He'll get a little bite there when he gets on that entrance road.
I think that's Aguilar Gomez.
Yeah. He'll just trundle down through the back pit lane and get back on here. But here we go. As you can see, Mast, he was actually a nose ahead when they got to the start-finish line. If you're watching on timing, that's why he shows in the lead. But he is actually sitting second in the race. And then it is Steve Ott and then Rob Hines.
Look how hard Marshall Mast is working, just sliding that Mustang. But we saw these, again, the beam axle cars. They do a very good job of being efficient towards a straight line. Big slide for Steve Ott in the more neon and black M Coupe. but the balance between the cars really interesting. The BMWs tend to be fastest at the end of the straights, where the Mustang's going to leap off the corners a little bit more. And it looks so far like maybe the spray is also helping Jason Ott kind of keep Marshall Mast at bay.
I think it might be, and you're right. I mean, again a big wiggle as soon as he jumps on the brakes. That's fast hands on the wheel there.
And it's kind of just like, let the car move for just a second. Don't fight it. If you react to that, you can go for a big old ride. But Jason Ott doing a great job. And we hear from Hayward real quick as a note that Jason Ott raced here in the earlier in the year in the rain. So he's probably got the data, and he's just starting to repeat that muscle memory, where a lot of the other drivers are still gathering that data.
That's a really good point. I mean, there is no substitute for seat time and experience at any venue, but any venue that you're racing at wet, if you've done that before, man, that's huge.
It is huge. And again, the top two now even checking out from the rest of the field. More opposite lock for the Mustang. Marshall working so hard as a big flat slide for the leader. Jason Ott nearly puts the car off the track in the snake, but gathers it up.
Yeah, and that allowed Marshall to get right on his 6 now. And Marshall, as he drops the hammer coming out of there, and that torque of that V8 gets him a little bit of launch. He was thinking about it, but this is one of those spots. You better have that pass made before you get to that first part, that right-hander in there. There is just no room. You've got a straight line through there.
And the other thing is that Mustang is totally cool with curbs. It says, you want to hit a curb? Great, let's hit more curbs. So you can see him kind of using those just a little bit more, being careful with the paint that's on them, but he's definitely putting the pressure on now into Oak Tree.
Well, I'll tell you what, those Phoenix Performance, we've seen it over the years, those Phoenix Performance Mustangs, they are born to curb hop.
Yes.
They just pound those curbs and it works. But I'll tell you what, Steve Ott is sticking right with him. And with those little slides by Jason and Marshall, he is staying right in the mix. They're dropping Rob Hines just a little bit. Breton Williams still sits in that 5th spot. And Jared Lenderum is up into 8th from where he started, 13th, so he is making some progress.
I don't know that it's fast enough progress to really challenge for a medal at this point, but he is one of the faster cars on track. In between them, Derek Kulak, Chris Hart also running there. But there's a good look at Steve Ott, kind of teammate to Jason Ott with the matching liveries, just slightly different colors on those cars. And he's certainly going to keep Marshall Mast preoccupied with just ever so slightly checking those mirrors.
Whoa. Well, another slide and drift by Marshall Mast as he is just floating that Mustang through here, loading it up. There's another slide. See the opposite lock. But the one thing I've been watching it, that car's moving around and sliding, but I've never had a sense that it's been out of control.
No, and he's not losing forward momentum either. That's the wild part, is that car just puts the power down, keeps both tires with full contact patch with the pavement. As now we see that pressure that Jared Lenderum is putting on the back of Derek Kulak. And just look at that all-wheel drive dig out. He's got a great run up the front straightaway.
Yep, you get all those wheels turning and working for you. But Derek, pretty talented young shoe, obviously, and with a couple of gold medals of his own. And you can see, once he's able to get the power down, that Nissan really slippery, and it opens that margin up just a little bit. Certainly, the Subaru behind him a bit more boxy and not quite as aero effective.
And I think he may also be fighting either visibility or hydroplaning issues. You saw him kind of back off, and down the back straight they had equivalent maximum speed. So the Subaru seems okay in top speed, but a little nervous down that bent front straight.
Here they come working through the sections of this track. Turn 3, this long left-hander. Oh, and up front, that's the number 5 of Hart's gone off. And comes back on, and not before Kulak got through cleanly. Oh, and now Hart fighting back on Kulak, and there's a touch, and Hart sideways as a result. And boy, I'll tell you, that was interesting because, as soon as he tapped him, he had to lift, and all the weight went to the nose, and that back end swung around. And right behind him, you can see Lenderum was thinking, maybe?
He really wanted that spot, but that was perfect because Derek Kulak didn't actually get affected by that at all. They just little kiss, but no effect on the Z, as now the pressure for the lead is really building.
The watch here is that Mustang gets a really nice launch. Using that power. Ooh, straddled that curve. You can see that the back of that Mustang wiggling. But right when they start to get up into the real top speed range, I think again the slipperiness of the BMW Z4M, he just starts to ease away from that Mustang.
It seems to mainly be in this phase of the straightaway, right before the braking zone. The rain is still picked up and is just barreling down on the track. The car is kind of spread out evenly through the braking zone. Whoa, look at the opposite lock needed for Marshall Mast to control the car through the braking zone for roller coaster, then gets the foot down. And this is where the car has just been dancing every single lap.
Yeah, well, right there is normally he's got a little bit of lock. Watch him now. This is the turn. It's 16. Then he feeds it into 17. the corner called Hog Pen. Oh, and behind him, it's Steve Ott, has a big lurid ride, and he's just trying to keep that car from going too far down. And the problem is you get down low like that on these, if your tires are fairly warmed up, this grass so wet, sometimes it's difficult to get the grip just to get back on track.
That's the forgiveness we were talking about.
Yes.
It was just a slight dirt drop to start with, and then it turned into a big, long ride. He's going to rejoin the track, and it looks like about 6th position, right in front of that battle between Hart, Kulak, and Lendrum. So he didn't even lose a whole lot of positions, but he did lose a podium.
Yeah, he certainly did. It's he's got good speed. He was able to stay with him. Watch it again here. And we were kind of focused on Mast because he's been spectacular there. Right there, just wait a bit quick coming in. It rotated around.
Yeah, that started way up the hill even as the yellow flags come out. Rob Hines is going to inherit that 3rd position. And then now he's going to rejoin that battle for 6th. But Mast is now kind of gaining confidence. Looks like he really knows what that car is going to do, is okay with it moving around. Jason Ott is still very much in control, but doesn't seem to be as much on attack.
You saw Jason there heading into the snake. You saw the brake lights flash just for a second, and that's a technique you can lose when it's low, or use when it's low grip, just to get the back of the car to settle a little bit. Look at that. I mean, obviously the lenses on our cameras are affected by this rain and weather as well. Just because of the moisture on the lenses, so we're sorry about that. Not a lot you can do about it when you're covering racing in the rain. And that's and with 40-mile-an-hour gusts.
Yeah, exactly. That's the directional wind just blowing mist right on that camera lens, and then they're going to get a nice toe down this back straight. See if Marshall Mast wraps this corner a little bit more. You see him, he's not tracking out. He gets the car pointed straight and then goes. Andrew Akalani doing something similar in a very similar car a little bit earlier today. No doubt kind of picking that up from each other, but that gets the car pointed the right direction, and Mast is kind of closing a bit the first bit of this straightaway. Now about that time is where Jason Ott starts to pull away. Look at how much distance he's gained in the second half of that straightaway.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised if Andrew wasn't just on the radio to Mast. 2 laps ago, we saw Mast run wide at the exit of Oak Tree, straddle that curb, and the car was dancing everywhere. And I bet you Andrew said, square that up. It's going to really be a lot more stable for you. And he did that. But I'll tell you, once you get it up in the real top end, that BMW, the slipperiness of it really allows it to haul.
It is, and he's doing a fantastic job in the corners, too. There's a little bit of, you saw how slow the opposite lock was there. It's a little bit more composed than the Mustang. And Jason is just very much in control. I don't think he's taking as many risks as Marshall is to get the same effect. So he's definitely controlling the pace of this race at the front, as he's the fastest car on track by lap time last time through, and he's actually pulled out almost a second lead this time by.
Yeah, he is uncorking some really, really good laps right. Ooh, a little bobble there as he got on the brakes, and it just skated a little bit. Nice save as well. And there's Marshall trying to, and it's tough because you see opportunities. Yeah, you see the guy up in front make that little mistake slide. So you go, oh, and I give it just a little bit too much throttle at the wrong time, and the back end steps out, and you've just nulled any advantage you may have had.
And it's beautiful watching both of those cars with a little bit of counter steer coming through turn 2 before they get on the brakes and roll into NASCAR 3. This is the section where the Mustang seems strongest. Whether it's just because they're slower and appear to be closer together, I'm not quite sure, but I think the Mustang's a little better in Sector 1.
Well, my guess is the Mustang's a fair bit heavier.
Holy cow.
And yeah, it's unbelievable. But in the wet, oftentimes having a car that's heavier than your competition can help you because it helps get weight on the loaded tires, and that weight will actually help you drive a little bit. So I'm not surprised that Marshall's really good in the twisty bits, because that car's probably going to point turn a little bit better. But boy, I'll tell you, once they start to get into the fast sections of the track, Jason Ott right now seems to have the measure of them.
Does, and we're talking about risk versus reward, how Ott is not taking the risks versus Mast taking the risks. Saw how much time he lost with the big tank slap that kind of took a couple corners to gather up through the snake at the lower S's. This time he took a big risk to get through South Bend quickly and caught right back up, but every risk has a possible payoff that you really don't want to find out.
Exactly. And then there is the number 4 of Rob Hines, so you can see the margin. It's now about 8.5 seconds from the duo up front back to the 3rd spot, and then a big chunk of time, about 12 seconds back to Breton Williams running in 4th, with Steve Ott recovering, getting around Derek Kulak and up into 6th, but still a fairly sizable gap there. But these two putting on an absolutely superb show, just dancing on the edge of adhesion. And when you're at this level, at this pace, and that car is moving around, it's hypercritical, isn't it? That all of your inputs have to be very gentle.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's amazing to watch this this ebb and flow. Is so fun to watch. Real quick note that Steve Ott, the spin we saw a couple laps ago, just turned the fastest lap of the race. So he's put the horse blinders on and is starting to check out from that 5th place battle with Chris Hart, Kulak, and Lendrum. But this battle at the front is absolutely the one to watch, as I think Mast is, again, taking big swings, and one of them is potentially looking to pay off.
And here we go again.
There's a mistake from Ott.
There it is. He saved it, but he's lost a lot of speed in the save, and Mast was thinking, well, I'm going to ramp the outside, but he went on the outside far edge right as you exit that long turn one. There's a big puddle out there.
Damn this, look at the wind just blowing that puddle completely, almost no mist off the back of the cars because it's immediately blown away. But neither of these drivers are bothered by that. Tons of pressure on the back of Jason Ott, who has yet to make the critical mistake. He had those little slides at turn one, but otherwise so well managed so far. The bad news is we're only halfway through. That guy's got to be getting tired.
Huge slide there. Ott saves it, but does he save it on the other end? He does. How did he hang on to that? And as I was just thinking right before that happened, that one shot, the rain is absolutely sideways.
Yes.
It is so windy out there, so nasty out there right now. These guys are doing a great job, again, dancing up on the curb. Oh, it's going to get him offline, and yet he is able to hang on to it. This is spectacular stuff. And I got to say, you were talking about that one puddle. You know it's windy when in a puddle on a racetrack there are white caps.
Yeah, exactly. As the uphill S's are now starting to look more like a waterfall. The car's just dancing up those, and now they get into the slower corners. Can the Mustang get squared up? Ooh, uses some of the painted curb on entry. That was risky. But look at this payoff that he's going to get. Going to pull right up to the back of the BMW until about halfway down this straight. And a new challenge will happen this lap to traffic.
Yeah, they're coming up on that already. And the interesting thing is, right now, in terms of top speeds, these two guys are the only guys running 130 plus miles an hour top speeds. The next highest speed is a 128, then it goes to 124, and it's the BMW at the top end of things by a mile an hour or two. That's been the difference.
Something a lot of drivers who have not driven on rain tires don't realize is they're so good for gripping the pavement. When you actually come to a hydroplaning moment, they're grabbing back to grip so aggressively, it actually becomes a lot scarier than a car that just hydroplanes for a moment and then gains grip back once. Those tires are grip, slide, grip, slide, grip, slide, and it becomes a very, very scary moment when the car is, you're not sure if it's going to slide or if it's going to grip, and that's happening a lot down the back straight, up the front straight. You can kind of see those little twitches. Remember the last time you hydroplaned on the highway at 70? They're doing it at a $130.
Yeah, whole different ball game here. And as things have settled just a little bit up front, we're going to step away for a moment. Thanks some of the great partners that have made this broadcast possible.
Focus, guys. We're in a race to the finish, okay?
Here's where the rubber meets the road.
These initiatives move the needle, like, at all?
Well, let's shift gears a minute.
We're really kind of at the apex here.
We need to put the pedal to the metal. We need to nail those hairpin turns, cross that finish line, and take that checkered flag. Woo!
Hit the track with the world's largest motorsports calendar, track day insurance, and more. Haggerty. Let's drive together.
Introducing the first ever Mazda CX-50.
Welcome back, everybody. This fabulous battle continues for the gold in T3 here at the 59th running of the SCCA Runoffs here at VIRginia International Raceway. This beautiful, beautiful racetrack under deluge right now, but doesn't change the fact we've got a great battle going on here. Again, our broadcast brought to you by Mazda. Huge thanks to the folks at Mazda for providing this coverage. And these two guys have just checked out completely. There's third, Rob Hines, coming out of Oak Tree. And and you can no longer even see Jason Ott and Marshall Mast as they drop down the other side and start the run toward the roller coaster section of the track. And the interesting thing about this track, you're down on the pit straight and you go through that technical section, and the climb up through the climbing S's and everything is gentle, right? You come around that back straight, a couple rolls and dips. That long climb you made, when you fall off of that a roller coaster section, that long climb falls down in one fast shot on Mast. I don't know if he's going to save it. He just drops the lefts. The rear goes around. Is he going to be able to pivot it, go back to front? Still trying now. Gently. That's huge. He's going to lose a ton of ground, but they had such a big lead. Question is he going to be able to hang on in front of Rob Hines? Maybe.
It's about 11 seconds between him and that yellow 370.
There it is.
That's the pass for second. Marshall Mast is going to have to get back up to pace, shake it off, put that behind him, and get back to pace. But right now, Jason Ott just breathed the biggest sigh of relief. Might have even fogged the windshield. You're going to see this start to happen.
Exactly.
It starts before the corner again. The floats are starting before they turn in, or right as they turn in, and then there's just no saving it, no forgiveness here at VIR, and that's heartbreak for Marshall Mast.
Yeah, it was such a fascinating run, no question about it here. And now that's going to move Rob Hines, as you said, up into that second spot. And he's just, driving well within himself. We haven't seen a lot of them, but every time I've seen it, that car's not sliding. It's not, anything drastic. He's just driving some really good lines. And behind him, you see Marshall now. And Marshall's fighting to stay in front of Steve Ott at this point. And you talked about how Steve had been throwing down some of the fastest laps in the race.
They've been consistently the fastest car on track since his off, and that's the same mistake we saw Steve Ott make, but that just made this battle for second a whole lot more interesting. We have Rob Hines measurably slower on lap pace with track position advantage in front of the two fastest cars on track. Marshall Mast, Steve Ott, that's the battle on camera here. And I guess we didn't get robbed of the race entirely.
No, not at all. I mean, it had been a good battle for the lead between two cars. Now it's a great battle for second between three, and it is going to be really impressive to see how this plays out. And if up front Jason is able to hang on, and we don't want to give him the old announcer's curse, but he's been second, 3 times at the runoff, third twice, so 5 times. He's been on the podium, but never on top of the box with that gold around his neck. This is a huge opportunity for him. Oh, and Marshall just lights the rears up, and that's going to kill his run. And Steve Ott just rolled a lot of speed, and we know how quick this BMW M is on this long run.
Yeah, it's looking very, very strong, and it's a lot easier to pass a car on the straight than it is in the corner. So if you have that straight line advantage and you have the opportunity to pass, we have no headlights on that car to see. He does look out, probably just for visibility, but the more these two battle, the more Rob Hines can just continue his own little race.
And that's a really good point. Is if Mast starts to either overdrive and the car's sliding around, or if he starts to be defensive here, that is the golden ticket for Rob Hines to stay in front of these guys. And this is that treacherous part of the track down through the bottom of Hog Pen. That time a lot more cautious run down there for Marshall Mast. Got a good launch out of it this time. That's going to be really important getting down into turn 1.
Sure did. Looking like maybe 2 seconds or so between Rob Hines in the yellow Z, then Marshall Mast in the black Mustang, Steve Ott in the black and neon BMW. But we're working lap number 10 now. Look at how good the Mustang is on the brakes. Holy cow.
Yeah, that thing, you can just see that front end dive, and it just planted incredibly well. Makes up a ton of ground here. The margin now between Ott and Hines is 18 seconds, so that's basically what Marshall lost. It's a long, long amount of ground to make up here.
I think the Tech Sport Racing guys might have radioed to Rob Hines and said, hey, now you're on the podium, now this matters, because Rob Hines picked up about 6 seconds from his previous pace to what he's running now.
Oh man, I thought that was Steve Ott with a dive move into turn 4, and I did not see any way that he wasn't going to clock Marshall Mast, and somehow he got out of it. But Ott's ready to go.
He really is. And yeah, now he's starting to slip and slide a little bit more. Those risks, you're going to start taking them. You got to be careful in these conditions for sure. But the BMW pops out once more, gets that sight line. No overlap yet, but it's going to be very tight up these uphill S's. Look at them, 3 abreast, or three nose to tail.
Yep, almost 2 abreast there. But again, Steve Ott at the last moment said, yeah, maybe not, and tucked back in behind. But the medals, obviously you want to finish the runoffs wherever you finish, but if you have a shot to finish in the medals, you're going to take it. And nice job there by the lap car, just moving well out of the way, letting them slide through. So good job there.
Yeah, Frank Garcia in the Boxster just letting that happen very nice and easy. No interruption on this race. Marshall Mast gets a good exit on the Oak Tree corner this time down the straight, but Steve Ott is not to be shaken. Rob Hines is still one of those guys. Just fight, go for it.
Yeah, eat each other up. Well, Ott, that was one of the better launches Marshall Mast got, but Ott rolled a lot of exit speed too. And I keep waiting. Oh yeah, he's there. And man, did he?
He got it.
He got through. I thought he rolled a lot of speed through the exit. That was a beautiful exit, and he obviously drove it well, because I thought that lap car might create a problem, and he was already past him.
Yeah, hard to say what happened with Mast to have lost that much ground and continuing to drop back.
Could he have spun him up on a shift or something?
It's possible, or maybe just had a missed shift.
Yeah.
But if the car gets back up to pace, we can stop speculating. Look at how much Steve Ott is fighting that steering wheel back and forth, sawing at it. Now he's got his sights set firmly on the yellow Z of Rob Hines.
Well, I'm sure the crew has let him know that, if you get by Rob Hines, you're second, buddy. Long way to go up to Jason, but still, and here he goes. This is where he's got such good top end, looks to the inside. Hines protecting right down the middle of the track, even easing to the right a little bit. And Steve Ott says, that's all right, I can make this work. And look at that, Hines trying the outside, and Ott just said, no, I'm here. You want to risk it on the outside, go for it.
And after how many years of being the bridesmaids, what would it mean for these guys to come home 1-2?
Yes.
Not just the win, but the teammates taking 1-2. Whoa, big opposite lock again on entry. Steve Ott needs to calm down, in my opinion, a little bit at this point. He's made the pass. He doesn't need to continue lapping 3-4 seconds a lap faster than he has been. And if he realizes that, I think he's in a good spot.
Yeah, I mean, it would take a huge amount of help. Although, remember I said it was 18 seconds a couple of laps ago? It's down to 14. Because right now, Jason is backed off a little bit. He's running 233s. Hines et al. Are running 227s to 229s. So they're making up some time. I'm pretty sure that's Jason, knowing he's got that big lead, has eased off a little bit, certainly driving the gap, so to speak. But I wonder if, now you're right. Now that Steve has second, does he think I can make up 14 seconds and get after it here? Or do I just say, I'm going to clear off a little bit here and then just bring it home?
Well, that was Jason that just flashed through the bottom of the frame. So that's the gap. And I have to imagine, especially being teammates, the incentive to run down 14 seconds is probably not all that high. But he has not yet shaken Rob Hines either. So he's just got to keep it consistent. And when we talk about that deficit from, you slow down 3 seconds, that could just be simply lifting down straightaways to avoid some hydroplaning, braking a little bit early. I mean, those 3 seconds are going to come up very, very quickly when you start to intentionally slow down.
And here is your leader, Jason Ott, as he is now working his way down through that roller coaster section of track. Such a tricky piece of tarmac. 15, there's 16, and now coming up to Hog Pen. Just this corner is so diabolical in the dry, doubly so or more in the wet, and he just negotiates it just like he's on rails. See what he does in terms of a time on this lap. His last one was a 2:33.2, and he lost, as I said, about 4 seconds here. See what he does when he comes through on this lap at this stage. 2:31, so he did pick it up by a couple of seconds here.
Yeah, the other thing to consider is he is in pretty consistent lap traffic, so that's going to lose you a little bit of time every single time. Now this battle for third is maybe the one to watch. Rob Hines yet again finds himself involved, fighting for a podium spot against Marshall Mast, who wants to salvage anything he can out of this race. A medal is still a medal, a podium is still a podium, no matter how it came. And I think it's safe to say that the Mustang maybe wasn't quite the tool for the job in these conditions, or perhaps it was a little bit less forgiving a tool of the job.
Yeah, you almost wonder if was it set up on the car perhaps, because earlier we saw Andrew Aquilani just dominate in a Mustang, and we talked about how those cars love curves. You can generally soften them up a lot, and they really roll the weight onto the loaded tires and plant. And just not sure what the issue might be here, whether they just missed on the setup just a little bit, or in these conditions, if it's that ultimate top end with the BMWs getting the jump and out front, if they're able to use, straight line off here by Hines. And nice job there, coming back on and making sure he left the door open so that he didn't get into and create an issue for Mast. But for Hines, that's going to frustrate him. He's been fighting so hard to stay on the podium.
Yeah, and that tells you those S's continue to just get worse and worse as the rain's still pummeling down. As shortcuts go, it wasn't very fast, but it was at least a nice, safe exit and rejoin
exactly.
through that section of track. That's maybe the most forgiving off you could have, but watch as the car just kind of floats as soon as he goes light, whoop, a little bit before the corner, just keeps his hands straight. That's a veteran move right there.
I was going to say, in a normal reaction, you could have been a lot more abrupt on that steering wheel, and that could have looped it right into a spin, and he just immediately straightened the wheel out. I mean, that was, as you said, savvy.
Best thing to do when you know you're going off is straighten it up and let it happen, as we have our leader now coming down the hill, working some more lap traffic. That's Rick Kulak in the 0.5. Very similar car to Rob Hines, and it easily lets that pass happen for Jason Ott.
Yeah, Rick's been doing this for a while. He gets it. Right now, these are the leaders coming through. You don't want to impede them. Let them go in their run for the medals. And but I'll tell you what, that margin up front, it went in one lap now. What, 3 laps? It's dropped from 18 seconds. Last time by was 11. So, I mean, Steve Ott is literally, it's down to 7 right now.
Yeah.
And he's running 5 seconds a lap faster than Jason is.
He is not slowing down at all. He's continuing to lap at basically the fastest the entire field has gone. And in the background, obviously Marshall Mast did get by Rob Hines that lap as they now are intercepting a little bit of lap traffic. That's Steve Ott pushing super hard. Now, if he can get through the lap traffic faster than Jason did, he may be able to continue to reel him in. And look at that, they're in the same camera shell right now.
That's impressive. That is impressive, the speed. There he goes, and here comes Steve. And, you know, an opportunity here once again to give a big shout out to the corner workers out there, out in the elements like this, and, you know, providing valuable information, including blue flags to those lap cars. You know, without them out there, I mean, that's huge information for the driver to know. I've got a fast, you know, one of the leaders coming up behind me, and, you know, to just ease out of the way, let them slide through. But now it is Jason and Steve. Neither of them at this moment are going to be impeded at all by traffic. And last time by, the margin was 7 seconds. It's going to be fascinating to see what happens next time by.
Yeah, with 2 to go, could end up with a fairly compelling finish here between two teammates after a lot of ups and downs through this race. Real quick, Brett Williams, Chris Hart, Derek Kulak, Jared Lendrum, Xiaoyu Che. How about that in the new GR86 Toyota? That's a cool car to see already out here racing in club racing. Probably a little underdeveloped, but that's that brand new, essentially new FRS for those who haven't stayed current. And then Simon and Salem are in the top 10.
Yeah, that's an impressive run by Xiaoyu. Here we go. On the exit now, out of Oak Tree. And they come by here. Yeah, next time by, it'll be 2 laps to go. And I'll tell you what, Steve Ott has found something here and is really rocketing up through things. And those 2 BMW Z4Ms are really hooked up here. Oh, a little more traffic, but Jason sneaking through very easily. And the question is going to be now, does Steve get a clean? Steve lost some ground there in that traffic, I think.
Well, he did have the same traffic that allowed him to catch Jason so much the previous lap, so that would make sense.
So 7 seconds last time by.
Holy cow, there's that hydroplaning we talked about. Steve Ott was just about 20 degrees sideways, flat out down the front straight. Sorry, Jason Ott was, and that was, again, just related to when you hydroplane on the highway. It's so scary when that happens.
And and as you pointed out before, they're doing it at a lot higher speeds at this point. That margin did come down to 5 seconds this time. So, boy, I'll tell you, you can see Steve out there. I have to use it because this is kind of the weather you'd race in a lot in Britain. He's giving him some welly.
That's because they wear those boots, right?
Exactly. Got it. Wellington boots.
Lapping Nicole Jacques here. That's a former championship-winning car. Nicole actually had an accident a little earlier this season, and they had that EcoBoost Mustang, that gray car in the background there, sitting from Marshall Mast, running it at a couple previous championships. I believe one at Road America and I want to say Indy, but that may not be right. She makes it easy for the teammate to get by, kind of, and then resumes her race.
Well, you know, for all the technology in modern cars, the one thing that has not yet been perfected is the disappear button.
Yes.
And so sometimes, you know, as the driver coming through traffic, the car that you're trying to get by, they just can't get out, you know, just disappear. And so you've got to figure out a way to get through. They'll open the door up, but you've got to adjust, and that's what threw Mast into that big slide, I think.
Exactly. New puddle that he hadn't found before.
Yep.
Haven't
run out here.
Just sheets of water coming down with 1.5 laps to go for your race leader. I wonder if they know that they're being, that they're kind of getting closer. You know, teammates, brothers, the Otts in first and second. I have to wonder if they're on any form of communication for Steve to know, or sorry, for Jason to know that Steve is catching him and catching him quick.
Yeah, and it's, I mean, basically, what, 1.5 laps to go at this stage. There comes Hines sitting back in the 4th spot. And here comes Jason. Well, I tell you, he is just impressively quick down that back straight and into the roller coaster. I mean, even though Steve's been closing on him, generally Jason's had significantly the higher top end.
He has, but take a look at the trap speeds. They're down about 10 miles per hour since we looked at maybe 4 laps ago. So the straight line speed has even had to come down for the sake of safety, really, more than anything else.
Well, yeah, I mean, you know, if you can't get the power down coming out of Oak Tree, it's going to take you longer to get to top speed. And then if you start to hydroplane a little bit, you better ease off just a little bit.
Even more hydroplaning that time under the start-finish stand.
White flag, last lap for the brothers Ott right now. Jason leading. And look how close it is, down to 3 3/4 seconds here. Wow, this is going to be amazing. I mean, that's close enough now where Jason knows one little mistake, and it could be all over here, and that sometimes can cause you to make that one little mistake because you feel the pressure.
Well, you can see the car in your mirrors no matter what, and he's probably not mistaking that car for somebody else. He knows it's the team car, and he's just got to stay focused, honestly, because the only thing that's going to close this gap truly is a mistake. As Steve Ott is just pushing so hard. If Jason just repeats his marks one more time, he will be okay with a 4-second deficit. There's it.
Look at Mast doing a monster tank slapper. He saves it. But now there's all kinds of muck that is right at the apex of what would that be? Probably 5A. So the drivers behind are going to have to be really careful. But man, I mean, for a minute there, it looked like Steve Ott might go up.
And he's somehow still reeling Jason in as they're up the uphill S's now. I have not seen track conditions this bad in my recent memory at all. But this battle for the lead is still compressing. One more lap car is going to be in the way here on the white flag lap.
Here we go. And certainly Jason is going to catch the car on the straight, and that's always the best thing. You catch traffic. And my guess is Steve might too by the time they get down to the end. But you know, Marshall Mast is finding some pace again. He's been matching Steve's time.
Which is not a huge surprise. Remember, it's only a mistake to put it back there. He's absolutely one of the fastest cars on the track. But clearly Steve Ott, Marshall Mast, more motivated to get some lap time out of the car than this guy is, Jason Ott.
I don't know. Maybe Steve's not going to get that lap car here. Jason already into 14 and getting ready to drop into the roller coaster. There he goes. And as you said, hit your marks. Just hit your marks. Let the guys behind you that are pushing so hard make the mistakes. Yeah, Steve got trapped.
Ooh, and a very awkward pass there up the inside down roller coaster.
Yeah.
Last sketchy corner to be cleared, I would say, is the puddle right before the checkered flag. Still not in the clear yet.
Yep, just tiptoe here. Coming up to the line for Jason Ott. After 20 starts in his 21st, will he do it? He does. He brings home the gold. Jason Ott winning gold in Touring 3 and coming across the line behind him by 2.2 seconds only. It is his brother Steve. What a run by those two. And look at the lap times. Obviously, traffic played a little bit of a part, but suddenly on that lap, and I think it's because of the conditions. I think the wind and rain has picked up massively out there really suddenly here, and they dropped 5 seconds a lap, both of them.
Clearly has, and that's going to make this even more special. Again, so many years being bridesmaids, so many years of medals, just not the gold one, and then they had to work together. They finished 1-2 in the most treacherous conditions, I would say, that we've definitely seen today at this event. that we've seen in runoffs in a very long time. So that's just going to, add all those layers in. He's not going to forget this one.
Well, absolutely. And I was, obviously you like that beautiful dry summer day, the fall day, it's gorgeous. But when you win a race in these conditions, you've truly earned it. And these guys, man, some of the saves they had to make, it's been spectacular. And that goes for the entire field.
Yeah.
Obviously, the guys in the medals are the ones that are going to be celebrating the most. But you come through in these conditions, you've really done something. There's a look at Brayton Williams in the Nissan 370Z Nismo coming through. That will be for the 6th spot behind Chris Hart. Remember, Chris had that off earlier and came back and ended up in the top 5. So a good day for him.
Definitely. And I think the last thing is just speaks to the talent that runs deep in this class. We've seen other drivers wheel cars like this and lap almost the entire field, but they didn't really have a lot of challenge. There were 4 or 5 drivers wheeling these cars in this race today, and it was so much fun to watch. I thank them for the entertainment more than anything else, but these guys just doing a fantastic job. We said Rob Hines comes home 4th, Chris Hart 5th. And then Brett Williams that we took that look at was 6th.
Yeah, just a phenomenal drive here, and by everybody just to survive this one. And for those guys up front, Jason Ott obviously got out front and just controlled it all the way to the finish. Let an 18-second margin shrink down to 2, but he won, and that's all that matters. But I don't think there's any question that we have seen some miraculously impressive driving displays by Steve Ott and Marshall Mast in particular in this one. Can't wait to hear the interviews with Hayward about this, because, these conditions are just rapidly deteriorating here. That shot up in Oak Tree, you're seeing the rain, sitting there, and it's deep enough that it's, look at that.
Just
sheets of it, and it is coming sideways. And they have to run the open windows with the windows net, so there are times that rain's just coming right in on you, even though you're in a closed cockpit car. I'm going to take one step further. I don't think I've ever seen a race held in this kind of condition. I've been doing this a long time.
Especially with we stayed green. We stayed green the whole time. The whole field did a great job.
Incredible drives. Yes, I agree.
But the conditions didn't stop Jason from fist pumping down that entire back straightaway. He is celebrating. Going to wear his little arm out, but
he can dry off and warm up later, man. He just won gold at the runoffs. That after in his 21st attempt. This is going to be a special one for him, no question about it. And just phenomenal. And I think you hit the nail on the head. Obviously great driving, by the guys that were up front, all of that. But in these conditions, a couple of minor offs, no full course cautions or anything. Kudos to this entire field. Look at that. That hand has to be absolutely drenched. And of course, the one guy out there who will look at the inside of that car and think it's a comfortable place is Hayward.
Yeah.
He's out in this right now and is in that squall, if you will. But wow, what a run by Jason Ott, Steve Ott, and Marshall Mast. And another podium for Marshall. You look at what he's done here in the last few years. It's just been absolutely amazing. But now it's all about our gold medalist, Jason Ott, who's with Hayward.
Thank you. Jason Ott, let me give you some numbers. 21 runoffs, 5 podiums, 1 national champion.
Finally! Yes, man, I am so excited. That was the hardest race I've ever done in my life, and to have my brother behind me, pushing me so hard, for us to go 1-2, words can't describe it. Woohoo!
So Marshall had the spin. Did you see it?
I didn't see it. The only thing that I saw was coming down out of the hill. He was faster through there, and I could see his headlights, and then they were gone. So I just put my head down and tried to make no mistakes, be the smoothest I could.
I'm glad that you gave me that segue. Front straightaway, obvious hydroplane. What was going through your mind?
Crazy hydroplane. As the race, the clouds were moving from Oak Tree down to the front straightaways. So the track was changing, and it was half throttle without hydroplaning everywhere.
All right, I got to ask you one more question. Anybody you got to thank?
Yes, absolutely. First and foremost, Dan Spyrick at Alpine Motorsports and Jim Lighthouser for all the work they do. Hoosier, absolutely awesome. Spyglass Engineering. I know I'm forgetting people every. Yeah, baby! We did it! Woo! Yes, thank you for everybody. Yes.
All right, I'm going to talk to Steve real quick before we send you guys on a victory lap. Steve, You've run with this guy a little bit. You were running him down. Were you trying to dial pressure up, or was there a team order to get in the shot for the checkered flag?
You know, he drove perfectly the whole race. I was trying to run him down, but the track got so bad those last couple laps. It was just I just went into survival mode. I chucked it off on the last lap, and he was just too good. You know, I made a mistake at the beginning, and they got away, and just had to run him down and do the best I can. But man, I think Hoosier, they just amazing job. Alpine Motorsports, everyone, my brother.
Well, congratulations to both of you. You're going to ride along on the victory lap. The brothers are going to go for a victory lap.
Oh, yeah.
Eric Prill and I were just talking. We think the last time brothers went 1-2, it was the Elliott brothers in Formula 440 back in the 80s.
A little bit. I'm stunned that we haven't had a little bit more of that happening in these conditions here. Obviously, a little video issue here as we were getting ready to head down and hear from our third-place finisher, Marshall Mast, the defending champion, as he came in. And, you know, it's funny for Jason, what he didn't see was he didn't see Steve going through the snake sideways and catching that curb and being up on two wheels. He didn't see Mast do that monster tank slapper through there. There was so much going on behind him, and Jason did, you know, when he said he was there, then he wasn't, about Mast, be smooth. Don't throw it off the road. Whatever happened, this is opportunity. Smart, savvy driving.
Yeah, it's just, again, for them to stay green the entire time and for them to finally get that. One thing I will say, Marshall Mast is the guy to chase in T3 for the last couple of years. He is the reason this field is that good. So for him, unfortunately, we didn't get his interview there at the end, but he's been the benchmark, and it's because of him and Phoenix Performance that this field has gotten to this level. But this is a replay at the green flag. Everybody in what looks like very nice, balmy conditions by now.
Yeah, by comparison to what we finished with, absolutely. But there was our first little moment as we had one of the cars just take that lurid ride. And then here was the number 5 of Chris Hart, who was right up front, dropped the wheels, and that allowed Derek Kulak to sneak through. But then Chris Hart fighting back immediately, little touch, got him all crossed up again. And then we go back. This is the moment that really gave opportunity to Jason Ott.
Yes, that heartbreaking spin that went on for what probably felt like forever in the car. With the pass for second now, Rob Hines inherited that second position for a couple laps, but Steve Ott, the man on the mission, give that man a half a gold medal as far as I'm concerned. A little off up his uphill S's, which became a downhill waterfall for Rob Hines. Also lost that position, just lost the medal. And then Jason Ott hydroplanes it home.
Yeah, I mean, look at there were the difference in the conditions. You know, you could see it. Just unbelievable. And as Jason now out on his lap of honor, and following him around is one of the EV vehicles here, just doing a track scenario layout here. And from what I understand here, folks, we are going to be not running the FX race. That will be tomorrow morning, just because of how the conditions have deteriorated here so badly. So that has been shifted to the morning. Things are going to change up just a little bit. And you know, when you've got a hurricane that's coming through, things are indeed going to happen. But one thing we can say without question is part one. What a race that we just saw put on in terms of entertainment. Secondly, the driving in that one was just magnificent. Just a couple minor offs, no cautions in these conditions. Kudos to the entire T3 field. That's going to wrap up our coverage here, brought to you once again by Mazda here, of our 59th running of the SCCA National Championship Runoffs and the Run to the Gold in Touring 3, a 1-2 sweep of the medals up front by the brothers Ott, Jason, Steve, and Marshall Mast, bringing home the bronze. On behalf of Tom O'Gorman and, of course, Haywood Wagner down in pit lane, I'm Greg Creamer. Thank you so much for joining us. Look forward to having you back with us as action continues tomorrow for day 2 of the 3 days of the running here of the Runoffs. Take care, everybody.
Why race? Because it's in our blood. A love of driving that pushes us as hard on the road as it does on the track. It's why we reinvented the Roadster and put a piece of it into every car we make. It's why we refine, rethink, and refine again. And it's why we'll always engineer to your heart's BPM, not simply an engine's RPM. Why race? Why indeed.